Hi guys, welcome back to the Butterfly Effect podcast. Today's video is all about the Quarry endings and how Jack and I would improve them. So, we've not been shy on this channel about talking about how we're a little underwhelmed with the ending of the Quarry. We like it was a good game, but my sentiment has always been, Jack, that it feels like after the flashback chapter, it feels like a different writer takes over and a lot of like the story arcs are abandoned, a lot of like the characters get left at the door, and it just felt like maybe there was a cast overload and they didn't quite know what to do with all of them. So we're just going to talk a little bit about a few of the characters, maybe how we'd improve their scenes, what we would have done differently, and how we could fix the Quarry ending. So Jack, I'll let you kick off. Anyone you want to talk about, anything you hate that you want to amend, get into it, lad.
Ooh, so I mean, the big thing that stands out for me is that, I mean, if we're talking about just chapter 10 at the minute, we've got the Caitlin Lodge showdown, and then we've got the Laura Ryan Travis Silas showdown. Now, for me, we've already had a scene where we've shot a werewolf, and that was with Ryan and Chris, right? And then you get it again twice, and it is, I think, a little bit of like a lack of variation there. And also just a lack of like genuine sort of excitement, especially when you're comparing it to Until Dawn with like the lodge sequence and the don't move and you've got to let the characters one out one by one and so forth. So I mean, while this is just a first draft, what I would want is to maybe you could still have them scenes, but I would want the ending to be outside. And I've just got this image in my mind of like this bird's eye shot of like all the characters slowly coming together, in a circle, and then there are wolves, like not just one wolf, there are multiple wolves like circling them, like slowly, like that the net's closing in on them. And I suppose what you're probably thinking is why there's so many wolves, but this is where I'll change it. So like, rather than Caitlin kill Caleb, or rather than Ryan kill Chris Hackett, I'd probably keep the wolves alive. So you've got obviously Caleb, Chris, Silas, Laura turns into a wolf. We know that Nick is in wolf form. So you've got at least 5 wolves there, and obviously Max is trapped on island, so you can't really do anything anyway. But I think that would be such an epic ending. You've got all these characters running in the woods. Maybe there's some QTEs, maybe there's some choices about whether you pick up a certain weapon, or like maybe you go to help a certain character or not. And then it could culminate in like this big action scene in the middle of the woods, because I do feel like the Caitlin Lodge one is like a half-baked version of the Lodge one in Until Dawn. And then as far as shooting Silas in the back, like I said already, it's just not, it's not that great. If anything, it becomes more entertaining when you don't shoot him in the back, but in which case the characters then just get killed anyway. So I would want that sort of like that pompous sort of like balls to the wall ending in the middle of the woods where you've got all the wolves together, all the characters together. And I think this would then be a perfect setup for what I'd want to do next, which is essentially to really, neatly put a bow on certain character arcs. So like maybe take Dylan and Ryan, for example. Maybe you did choose for them to be in a romantic relationship, or maybe Ryan and Caitlin. You could then get a payoff with them two. On a similar vein, you could get a payoff between Jacob and Emma. I mean, I know technically they do have a payoff, but maybe Jacob and Nick as well, because Nick, you literally don't see anything of him. He just gets a card at the end that says, oh yeah, Nick, he survived, he was in the woods, blah, 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 blah. And Jacob was in the woods as well if he was alive. So that was a perfect opportunity for them to get back together. Also as well, like if Chris Hackett stays alive, there is like potentially a very tense post-credit scene that could go down there, like a really nice cut scene where there could be some awkward conversations between them. And then that ties into what else I would do is probably just to scrap the podcast thing off. Like, I'm not a big fan of it. I liked it as a pre-game hype thing. As a credit sequence, I just didn't really warm to it. I preferred the interrogation thing with Until Dawn. And then especially if you throw Silas into the mix with the ending, you could then perhaps get a little bit more involvement with Eliza as well. So, do you know what I mean? Like, it's a little bit first draft. And one of the other points I'd make is that while I do like the attempt at having different ending locations, it did feel a bit disjointed, and I think I obviously missed one in my first playthrough because Laura and Ryan died in the Hackett house. So like the Caitlin Lodge thing didn't feel like an ending to me. It felt like that the characters needed to come back together for like one final scene, because it just, I don't know, it just sort of then cuts the credits and you're like, oh, that's it, you know, there's nothing else to really wrap the game up. So those are like my sort of like overarching points, mate. I don't know if you've got any points yourselves or any sort of like reaction to what I've said.
Yeah, big time. I mean, like the whole wolf kind of scene you've set up with them circling the characters certainly would go for a tense trailer shot, and like one that I'd love to see in the game. I'd have to think about the functions and like how that would work, but I love the idea of maybe you get a choice of which wolf to shoot, and you have to kind of like think about the bloodline maybe, and which one would like snap who out of which wolf film or whatever. So yeah, no, it's certainly something that is so plausible there, mate. But yeah, like I think you saying you're underwhelmed by the ending, and I feel like maybe it's because this game is the successor to Until Dawn, and we look at the ending we got there, and yeah, you mentioned how epic that Wendigo Lodge fight was, and yeah, they do have two different endings where you could have Jess and Matt in a different place. But I don't know, for some reason I just felt like the interview tapes and then the possible Josh bonus scene at the end, I just felt a lot more rewarded with that than I did with the podcast, which when we were like looking at the Quarry, you're the one who looked at those videos. I had no sort of following, so it felt really foreign to me. So I didn't really understand, and I just didn't have any connection to these two podcasters, you know. Which, you know, I shouldn't shout too much in case there's any new viewers out there who are watching two podcasters here for the first time, but still. Don't get me wrong, I kind of like the sunset scene with, you know, Daydream Believer, or the alternative song I got where you had all the things, but yeah, it did feel very cheap where like, oh, was that it? Where like, especially as I'm about to discuss, certain characters you won't see, and it's like, oh, I thought I was going to get like more scenes with them, and you just don't. One thing that I think I want to start with, lad, and it's the, you know, it's the biggest thing. I always mention this. You guys are pretty sick to death of me talking about it. But I just hate the fact that Ryan goes to Hackett House with Laura. We've got this epic prologue where we've got this epic connection with Laura and Max. We literally have a whole flashback chapter, and it's what cements them to me as the best Supermassive Game couple. We've spent a lot of time with them. They're believable, they're quirky, they're dynamic. You really ship them as this couple. And then it just like, that's why I feel like a different writer comes in. It's like, oh, the writer's come in, he's not even looked at chapter 7. Oh yeah, this Laura character, I'm going to lump her with Ryan now. And it's like, it makes no sense to me. And I hope someone in the comments can explain why that decision was made, because I hate everything about this decision. Like, it's just so illogical. The one thing I would do to change it is I'd pitch a choice of who goes with Laura. Because we have this whole arc, don't we, with like Ryan kind of like picking either like Caitlin or Dylan, like around the fire. I know most of your scenes are with Dylan, so you probably end up picking him. But it might be that, like, you know, Ryan and Dylan go to the scrapyard and they get that scene, and Caitlin goes with Laura to Hackett House, and you get like a badass female ending where maybe they bond, maybe they clash, and they're trying to be like, the best female there is. I'm unsure how you'd write it. But I just think that, you know, you should give players a choice with, you know, how that's going to go. That, or you just completely ditch any sign of this Laura or Ryan, you know, romantic angle. It makes no sense. And speaking of Laura as well, I would make the ending scene with her reuniting with Max customary. I don't think it should be an optional scene where you've got to do certain things to reach that. I feel if both characters are alive at the end of the game, they should get a reunion scene as a customary thing. I just think that should have happened. Yeah, like you said, mate, one of the biggest flaws in characters that gets like the shitty end of the stick, maybe you could say it's Chris Hackett, but playable wise, it's definitely Nick, right? The moment he becomes a wolf, he's just stuck in a cell, right? And then you don't, you know, whether you kill him or not, you just see him at the end of the game, and it just felt so cheap to me. And you touched on it already, mate. You've got Jacob, who's in a cell next to him, and then you've got Nick there. If they're both alive, I know like Jacob can run out, and then you see him, you know, at the end in the forest, potentially with Emma, potentially not. you could have had some Jacob and Nick scenes there, and because they've got a bit of a beef or quarrel because Nick ends up kissing Emma around the campfire, you could have had a whole scene there where, you know, maybe like there's a forgiveness scene there, maybe a bit of bro bonding where like they come together and they've got to like maybe fight a wolf together, just something, you know. And it just felt like a real missed opportunity. So, and you know, that would have just been a perfect way to like, you know, write Nick and Jacob, because yeah, although like Nick didn't get an ending for me, Jacob did, and it was pants because Emma was like, you know, somewhere else, you know, in the lodge given the silver bullet. So like Jacob just ended up crying in a forest. That was literally his ending. I had a 30-second scene of Jacob crying in a forest by himself, and it just felt poor. So yeah, I mean, that is how I'd fix the Quarry ending. 2 simple tweaks by giving, you know, in summary, Jack, giving you a choice over who goes with Laura to Hackett House, and kind of having a bonus scene for Nick and Jacob. Don't know what you make of those, lad.
I really like them both. I mean, we've said already, haven't we, that Laura that really does come in and like just sort of takes over the plot too much in the Quarry. Great character in that, but it does sort of, it's a little bit jarring when you've got to know the other characters for the bulk of the game. But yeah, I mean, I'm interested to say, like, would Ryan be one of the choices, like, to go with her to Hackett House? Like, would it be just between him and someone else, or how would you do it?
I don't know, for some brain dead person who ships both of them, to give them that option, you know. But I feel like, I honestly feel if you are presented with those choices, like who goes with Laura, who's going to the scrapyard, Ryan would be bottom of my list, honestly. I feel like Dylan probably should be with Ryan, so I'd probably put Caitlin with Laura first. But maybe some people out there like the idea of Ryan and Caitlin together, so maybe you have like Dylan and Laura, because I feel like you get some quirky scenes there. I feel like Dylan's a very funny, goofy guy. Laura is a girl on a mission trying to save her boyfriend. So it's kind of just like maybe you've got kind of serious versus like goofy, and I reckon Dylan and Laura would have had some great scenes together. So yeah, like not only would Ryan be bottom of the barrel for me, but it just should not have happened in the first place, mate.
And that's the thing, yeah, the Ryan is quite such an underwhelming character. Like, for someone to be final boy, or like, do you know what I mean? Like to get like the action hero status, it's just, yeah, feels a bit underbaked, and I wouldn't want to have him necessarily in there either. So I do get you, but I think like almost like coming back to what I was saying is that, you know, in principle, the idea of like having, you know, a Jacob and Nick, you know, thing fighting off a wolf, great. Caitlin in the lodge, great. I really did just want the characters to come back together at the end. It would be a little bit manufactured, and I really like your idea about, yeah, you know, not knowing what wolf to shoot. And I'm guessing that obviously that would be quite difficult because, you know, you wouldn't know which character you're shooting, X, Y, and Z. So that would have to be like a little bit worked on. I guess in the end you'd probably just have to try and wait and shoot Silas, you know, so then everyone comes back. I don't know. But yeah, like a trick was definitely missed with the ending of the Quarry. Like we say, it felt a bit disjointed. Arcs and characters were just, you know, completely abandoned in places. I don't know why that was, whether it was a budget thing or I've seen other people say it could be COVID. But yeah, like something went miss after chapter 7. So I feel like what we've tried to do, guys, is we've tried to somewhat improve it. Maybe you can let us know what you think in the comments below, and or, you know, better still, give us your suggestions too.
Yeah, well, guys, that is how we would fix the Quarry, as Jack mentioned. Please let us know what you think of our fixes, if that would have improved the game, and let us know if maybe not at all, and what you would fix yourselves. So yeah, Jack and I grab all the comments, so honestly, far below, guys, pitch us your ideas, and we'll get to them as soon as possible. But yeah, thank you very much for joining, guys. If you want more Quarry content, let us know, and we will see you in the next video.
See you later.
You know what I'm going to do? Anya likes the Quarry, and she's got a good head for these kind of things, so I'm going to ask her right now. Anya, how would you end the Quarry and improve the ending?